So, a fresh new week has arrived, and here on this channel, that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend, I post an episode of the series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week, based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week, the NBA's free agency period has been going down, and a lot of craziness has ensued, with top players moving all over the place and trades going down as well, so we definitely have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now, so if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Christian, and he says that the 76ers adding Paul George in free agency won't impact their success all that much next season. I think right off the bat that is a bit of a ridiculous way to phrase a take like this, so I'll talk about the move from the perspective of him doubting whether the addition takes the Sixers over the edge to be able to legitimately compete for a title or not, because that seems like a more valid take on the matter. The 76ers have tried many different strategies over the years trying to get over the hump, but none of them have worked out, with most of their seasons ending in the second round of the playoffs. After years of trying quick fixes and making big moves that were high risk, high reward, they switched things up, targeting this offseason specifically to set themselves up to make big splashes by ensuring that they would have a lot of cap space available to spend in this free agency period and to recoup as many first round draft picks as possible over the last year to potentially make some meaningful trades, basically saying it would all come down to this, and if they failed to make any meaningful splashes, it would have been an utter disaster. So on that note, landing Paul George to pair with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid was absolutely a huge get for them, because even though George may be on the decline overall at least a little bit, he's now easily one of the best third options in the NBA, and his playstyle fits in seamlessly alongside the team's two cornerstones. Not every star player embraces the spot-up, catch-and-shoot role because they like to be the ones creating with the ball in their hands the most, but a very high percentage of George's shot attempts come off the catch, and he shot 43% from three in catch-and-shoot situations just last season, so with someone like that in the lineup, it becomes very difficult to double-team Joel Embiid as much as he historically has been. The only real concern in my eyes with this group, as it is every year, is with their injury history and overall health. Joel Embiid and Paul George have a ton of wear and tear on their bodies, so that's always going to be hanging over their heads, but when it comes to injuries, you never really know what's going to happen, and if the talent is there, it's almost always worth the risk, because if the team can all be healthy for the playoffs, they're definitely as talented as any team in the East besides maybe Boston, and it doesn't even seem all that crazy to say that they could prove to be able to push the Celtics to a tough series. The next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Rashad, and he says that Klay Thompson's tenure in Dallas is going to prove to be a bust. The Mavericks came in and really surprised the NBA world by landing Klay Thompson in free agency. For starters, it's incredibly difficult to think about a Warriors team without the trio of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green leading the way after over a decade of that being the case, so many probably expected them to all retire as Warriors. This is of course a business though, so the fairy tale endings don't always get to happen that way, but even with that being the case, the Mavericks weren't really a team mentioned in many of the rumors regarding the teams that were interested in Klay if he were to hit the open market. Teams like the Orlando Magic were very closely linked to him, the Lakers tried really hard to recruit him to LA, the 76ers inquired hoping to add more spacing, but in the end, it was the Mavericks who pounced on it, showing everyone they don't want to fall back in the West after a trip to the NBA Finals. The real question, though, is how much Klay has left in the tank, and whether or not he'll actually be a good fit alongside Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. Prime Klay Thompson could fit onto any roster in any lineup, because he was an all-star caliber sharpshooter who really doesn't even need the ball in his hands all that much to make his impact felt, and nothing encapsulated that more than when he dropped 60 points in a game on just total of 11 dribbles throughout that game. This is not prime Klay Thompson we're talking about now, though, and in recent years, he has developed some bad habits regarding his shot selection that need to be reined in. The reason why I disagree with the original take, though, and do come in more optimistic about his fit in Dallas, is because Klay went out of his way to look for a fresh start, and what he does best works perfectly with what Luka Doncic does as a passer and overall creator. The Mavericks are basically replacing Tim Hardaway Jr. and his inconsistent shooting nights with Klay Thompson, who at worst shoots 40% from 3. Klay is also a better defender than Tim Hardaway Jr., so all in all, the Mavericks definitely have reason to be excited. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Michael, and he says that even after adding DeMar DeRozan, the Sacramento Kings will still only be a play-in team. The Kings were flying high 2 years ago, finishing in 3rd place in the Western Conference standings and making the playoffs for the first time since 2006. But then they got a harsh reality check about how fast the pecking order in the league can change year to year if you get complacent. They chose to basically run it back with the same group, only this past season they finished in 9th place in the West and did not make it out of the play-in tournament, missing the playoffs. That's about as big of a wake-up call as it gets, that they need to be more aggressive, which is why I do really like the fact that they recruited DeRozan and signed him to a pretty reasonable 3-year contract worth $70 million on top of it. He doesn't get talked about that much anymore, but DeRozan's still got a good amount left in the tank, coming off a season where he averaged 24 points per game and shot 48% from the field. The reason why a lot of people are skeptical about how much better the Kings get by adding him is because he's not exactly a very good defender, and the Kings have also never been great on the defensive end, but the reason that the Kings had so much success 2 seasons ago was because they were demolishing teams and were ranked as the league's #1 offense in the league, and that's the identity that I think the team can get back to with DeRozan in the mix. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis are both all-star caliber talent, but neither are true top-tier superstar level guys, and if you lack one of those types of players, you do need as much firepower as possible in that next tier down. The Kings ranked 14th in the league on defense last season, which is pretty average, but you can still contend with average defense if your team's offense is one of the best in the league, and the Kings have shown that they can be one of the best offenses in the league before. So now, with yet another confident shot creator in the mix, it does alleviate De'Aaron Fox's job as the primary ball handler, and Sabonis has yet another creator to run the two-man game with. I'm not saying that the Kings shoot back up to the top of the Western Conference standings necessarily, but as things currently stand, I do definitely see them back in the playoff picture. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.